Hey, it's Scott Petrak with another episode of the Brown Zone Coverage Podcast. The Browns went all the way to London just to lose a game they should have won. The celebrated defense had the chance to secure the victory and allowed an 80-yard touchdown drive. Before that, the offense, with Dillon Gabriel making his first start, couldn't get a first down. The Browns should be 3-2. They're 1-4. Here to discuss, as always, is Dave Chudowsky of Go, the WKYC Morning News. What's going on, Chuck?
Scott, just miserable. Miserable. I mean, that should have been a victory. They had it and they just let it go. And there's so many Browns losses that are frustrating. But this one, to me, especially with where they could be in the division with the Bengals and Ravens where they're at, it's just I don't have the energy even to yell or scream. Not that I do a lot, but I like to raise my voice sometimes. This was a tough one, and I think what I'm going to start and throw at you right away is because you mentioned a bunch of the things right there at the top, but I sent you a text on Sunday, and I have been a Stefanski backer the entire time. I have always been on the side of defending him, but for the first time, Scott, and I want to start this out by saying I don't think he should be fired. I don't. So, but I am starting to waver. And I think that the coaching staff and Stefanski lost that game. And a lot of times it's hard because, they're not the ones on the field playing. But I really believe that it falls on them. And that's how I feel. I feel like this one's on Stefanski.
All right. Well, I want to hear why you think that. I'm going to say that he did not have his best game, and I think it looked worse when you can easily compare and contrast him to Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell, who had a backup quarterback, who was missing 3 starting offensive linemen to open the game, and then their left tackle didn't finish the game. So he was still able, the Vikings were still able to move the ball. He ran a trick play for a touchdown. He called the right plays in the 2-minute drive to win the game on that last touchdown drive. So I think the comparison is easy there. And Kevin O'Connell had a better game, was a better play caller, and gave his team a better chance to win. So I agree with that. But I want to hear why you think Stefanski and the coaching staff cost them the game.
Well, number one, the touchdown, their first touchdown, where they completely just fooled. Was that Akers with the touchdown?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there was nobody there. I mean, I feel like you have to be more prepared for a play like that if you are an elite defense. I mean, that was I just can't believe how unprepared they were for that play. So that's kind of minor down at the bottom, but I'm kind of setting up to the bigger ones. So there was that. The special teams play, you got, I mean, I guess that's on the players, but, it just seems like we have one play that swings one way or the other. We talk about this every week. But, imagine if they're starting that drive 99 yards instead of 80 yards.
Yeah. Well, that was the kick before. It wasn't that one. It was the drive before.
It was the drive before? Yeah. I thought
it
was that one.
Yeah, I had to double check because I thought it was too. But
okay, yeah. All right. Well,
but still, it changed. The field position is affected from there forward, and I don't mean to interrupt, but Chud, I'm glad you said it because nobody's talked about it. And I know Rex Sinahara, the long snapper from Bay Village, is trying his hardest, but there's no reason to slide there. Your guy already tapped it back, and we see it across the league. It happens like once a week where there's no need for a player to roll on the ground and his foot touches the end line. Just touch the ball. Just slow down, and there's no Vikings around to return it. It just feels like way over exuberance that cost them. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Well, I really thought it was on that. I guess I was just so mystified towards the end. But
I'm going to look again, but I don't think it was.
Well, and then we always talk about like having an elite receiver, and Justin Jefferson's so good that he's going to beat every team. But it was just so frustrating that like every time they needed a play, he was there to deliver, and we just don't have that guy. And I know I'm kind of maybe deviating from being on the coaching staff, but that play to him at the end that sets up the touchdown. And the final drive on not the final one, not the final drive where they were trying to Hail Mary, but the key drive where they only burn 11 seconds. I don't have a problem with them passing on third down because you got to go for the first down. I thought it was a terrible play. I mean, it had no shot. I just feel like they gave it away on that drive. They just gave up almost. Like, hey, we're going to hand off twice, try to milk the clock. I mean, there was nothing creative about those 3 plays. In a game where they were kind of creative, I thought. I mean, I thought they put Gabriel in some creative situations. And there was just it feels like I've seen it before. Bad teams do that. They didn't erase any clock, and that's on Stefanski. 11 seconds, that's it. Maybe start out with the play action pass on first down where if you don't find an open receiver, you can run the ball to still kill the clock and maybe get some yards. They got absolutely nothing. And then was it 3rd and 12, right? They put themselves in a terrible position. 3rd and 11. It made no sense, especially, and what's crazy about it is Junkins had such a great game. I felt the creativity wasn't there. And then if you solely were just saying, hey, we can punt this ball and our defense has us, well, that's bad coaching too, because I don't care how elite this defense thinks they are. Yeah. So many times in a game, we in the NFL history, you've seen that happen. And you're relying on the defense. And I just thought that was, if that's what he was doing, I just think now, and we'll get into the defense and how, that last drive really cost them, obviously. And if they are to be elite, they got to stop them there, and we'll get into that. But, I think that's where it ends. But I just – and I'm not even into the timeouts and the clock at the end. You can get into that a little bit. But I just felt like it falls on Stefanski this time. It really does. There's a lot of games where people blame him, and I don't. This one I do.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there, Chud, and so much to break down. Let's start with that sequence when they get the ball with, I think it was 3:27 left, and they use 11 seconds. I feel like in Stefanski's earlier days as coach, he would have run a play action pass to start that drive, and which is what you're advocating. And I think the reason he didn't on Sunday is because he knows how bad his offense is. He knows he doesn't trust his receivers, even though he says he does. And he has gotten himself into this box where he feels the only way they can win games is 17-14 with the defense making the biggest plays at the right moments. And he doesn't want to compromise that. So he does not put his rookie quarterback in any kind of danger on first down. He plays it so conservatively by running. And I get it, right? Like, Quinshon Judkins was probably their best player on Sunday. So give him the ball twice. And you have this offensive line that had Jack Conklin back. So you got 4 of your guys in there. Like, they want to be a run-the-ball team. If there's something about having the ball for the last 3.5, 4 minutes, right? They call it the 4-minute offense. And running it down a team's throat and saying, this is how we're going to end the game, is by running for 2 first downs. So that's happened before in this league. The Browns have done it before. I've seen them do it when Nick Chubb was there. But I also have seen Stefanski be aggressive in that situation and know that the Vikings are safety blitzing, so it's going to be really difficult to run the ball. But I feel like he has boxed himself in with a lack of – I'm not saying it's his fault there's a lack of talent, but he knows there's a lack of talent on offense. He knows he's got a rookie quarterback, and he's got this defense that's supposed to be great. And overall is great, right? It's still a top 5 defense. But the problem is you don't get the first down. You know, the 11 seconds thing is it's always going to be 11 seconds because the other team's going to use their timeouts, right? So it looks bad, but, I mean, the plays don't run any longer. It's 11 seconds. But you're trusting your defense and saying, okay, you got to go win the game. And if it doesn't happen, which we've seen this league, there's plenty of fourth-quarter comebacks, you're left, and it gets all blamed on the defense. And like you said, we'll talk about it later. But your offense did not help out the defense again, right? There were no sustained possessions in the fourth quarter. All they needed was one more drive, right, to take time off the clock or to score some points, and it doesn't happen. So, so I get what you're saying. I just think I think Kevin Stefanski is in such a tough spot because that's not his nature. I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that's his nature is to run it twice and then throw it on third down. I think he wants to be aggressive, and he just doesn't feel he can do that. And it's interesting because the times you do see him be aggressive in the first 5 games is on fourth down. Like they're going for it a ton on fourth down, which he usually does, but they're going for it a bunch. And they had a success converting against Minnesota. Judkins picked up a few fourth downs. And I feel like while that seems aggressive, that's just him saying, man, if we don't stay on the field here on fourth down, we're never going to score a touchdown. Like we can't settle for field goals because instead of 17, they're going to score 9. So I just think he's in a real tough spot. And the last point I want to make on that is third down. I've heard you did not, but I've heard people criticize the fact that he threw it there. Just run it and make Minnesota use it another timeout. That's the wrong way to think. The way to think is you got to try to get a first down, which goes to your point that more important than making Minnesota use timeouts is getting a first down, especially with 3.5 minutes left. So you have to throw it on third down. Now, was it a great play call? Probably not. It looked like miscommunication that Gabriel thought Bond was going to run a deeper corner route, and instead he cut out and ran an out route. Gabriel, after the game, said it was just about throwing the ball away, but he was speaking in general terms, not maybe specifically that play. But obviously something went wrong there. He threw it away, miscommunication, whatever. It wasn't a high percentage play. Again, Stefanski probably and Gabriel trying not to turn the ball over because they trust the defense with the 3-point lead. But the play is not to run there because all you do is make Minnesota use a timeout, and you give them 3.5 or 3 minutes left, and that's all the time in the world. Minnesota got the ball back and didn't use a timeout. I know the Browns did, but it didn't matter. They had all the time in the world. They were in no hurry. First down is way more important with 3 minutes left than getting Minnesota to use another timeout.
Yeah, so Scott, you mentioned 11 seconds, but if you get a little more creative on first or second down and you do a rollout, you're going to burn a little more time. You might possibly complete a pass that's going to burn a little more time. And also you're moving forward instead of backwards and possibly getting a first down to where you don't even put your defense in that situation. So, that's my only thought to that.
The key is to get a first down, right? Like 11 seconds versus 22 seconds doesn't matter with 3.5 minutes left. The key is to get a first down, and you need to do everything you can to get that first down. And 2 runs into the line against a blitzing safety is probably not the best way to do that.
Right. So that, and then I'll add to this, and I know this because I heard you on 92.3 with your weekly segment that you do every Monday at 11. I heard you bring up the fact that they didn't even get a ball into the end zone for a Hail Mary. Right. That the final play of the game, you have to get the ball in the end. That's coaching too. And not to say that what they did was wrong, but if you're going to do that, you got to execute it and make sure you do get a shot. Because yes, I do understand what Stefanski said. I saw his comments. I think it was yesterday. Yeah. You know, they'd rather have a chance from the 30 or whatever, going 30 yards instead of 50 yards, whatever the numbers are. I get it. I understand what he was doing, but execute it. So that's another marker on the coaching.
I agree. I have a big problem with that, Chud. Of course, Hail Marys are low percentage, right? So is a shot from the 30 is going to be low percentage because the Vikings are going to put 7 or 8 guys across the end zone. I get it. It's a higher percentage from the 30 or the 28-7, wherever they would have run it. And he said it's risk reward, right? You risk the fact that you're going to get tackled in bounds for the chance to run a play from the 30. I think that's the wrong equation there. I think you have to throw the ball into the end zone at least once. And they were going to do that, and then Minnesota called the timeout, so then they changed they changed the plan and wound up running that crossing route to Thrash. And the other problem I have with that play, it's Jamari Thrash. The guy, he's not the fastest guy in the world, and he winds up getting tackled. Now, the Vikings guy makes a good play, and, they defend it as opposed to letting him catch it and get out of bounds. But, Thrash doesn't have a target all game, and then that's the one play, and he can't get out of bounds. So I had a big issue with that. Again, the Hail Mary is probably not going to work, but you got to throw the ball in the end zone now. You're down 4 points. A ball in the end zone wins the game, and they don't get to throw a ball in the end zone. I had a huge problem with that.
Did he almost get out of bounds? Did it feel like?
Oh, yeah,
Scott?
he was about a foot away. The guy made a good tackle, but still. And it would have been 1 or 2 seconds. Like, they would have gotten it out. He would have gotten out of bounds just in time. But I feel like it's too risky. You got to throw the ball. And we've seen Hail Marys work. I know it's low percentage. We've seen them work against the Browns. It can happen. I just think you have to get the ball in the end zone there.
Yeah, that was tough. So again, I'm not calling for his job, but I definitely it's getting frustrating, Scott, because I think it was RG3 on Twitter or X, whatever it is now. He wrote, I think it was him. I can't remember, but I wrote this down. He put Dillon first career start, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers in London. So, you're not at home. You're in basically a road game. Rookie running back, 110 yards. Defense forced 2 turnovers. And we always talk about, and Stefanski always talks about winning the turnover battle. You and I have talked about it, right?
Yep.
And they still lost. And he goes, that's coaching.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge RG3 fan on X.
I know, but a good point's a good point, though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's coaching. I mean, we already. Yeah, I'm not absolving Kevin Stefanski any blame here. I'm not. It was poor. I think the bigger problem, Chud, is there's 2. The defense doesn't get a stop at the end because they win the game if it does, right? And then it's not about wasting the 2 turnovers, the 2 takeaways. And just a little side note here, the last time they won the turnover battle 2-0 was when they got killed in New Orleans last year. So they won it there 2-0 and got beat like 35-17. So I know over time and over big, a huge data sample that matters a bunch. I'm not trying to diminish the importance of turnovers. But the last time the Browns went 2-0 in the turnover battle, the last 2 games they've lost. So, but my point is, I think it's more about the lack of offense. That's why they're losing games, because they can't score enough points. And is that Stefanski? It might be. And he's a play caller. And so I'm not saying he's not responsible for part of that. I think the fact that they have the receiver play is as awful as it is more important, or is hurting this team more than any scheme, more than any play calling. And I don't blame Kevin Stefanski for that. I blame Andrew Berry. And I also blame the players. Like, Jerry Jeudy is a shell of himself. And, I think he'll turn it around, but who knows if he will. But he had another big, was it a drop? I think it was a drop. It was a tough catch, but it was a long third down. They have a chance. They didn't convert third downs all day. They're 3 for 15. They have a chance to convert a long one and keep a drive going, and he can't hang on to a ball. And we've seen that throughout this season. Isaiah Bond shows up once in a while, but he's still young and unproven. Jamari Thrash has done nothing this year. Cedric Tillman's on IR, and he was inconsistent. Like, there's no threat from these receivers right now, which makes it awfully difficult on a play caller and an offense and a quarterback. And there's not a lot of separation being gained. There's drop passes. The receivers, until the last 2 catches, which went for 22 and 22 to Bond and Thrash on that last drive, right, where they don't get the ball in the end zone, including those, the receivers had 5 catches. So it's all tight ends, all running backs, and that's such a tough way to live for a quarterback and a play caller.
Yeah, and Scott, that goes back to the Jefferson thing, right? I mean, and how many times on this pod have we talked about that Jeudy isn't a number 1 and Minnesota has that guy, and really he was huge for them, and you just pointed it out very clearly right there. I mean, it's a big difference there, and I guess the last thing a lot of people are pointing out is the Browns' record under Stefanski in the last, I don't know, what is it, 22 games or something like that. 4 and 18 or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of things you can really break down, but I guess my final point on Stefanski is, do you think he should be concerned? Or, and I have to say, and I got to give Jeff Phelps credit for this, because I love when someone makes me think.
Yeah.
And earlier on that show, when I was driving home from work, you were on at 11. This was at the beginning. He had mentioned something about if nothing changes and no one gets fired, and you have to wonder if, and I've been thinking about this, they are actually as bad as we like to say they are. They should have won that game. They should have beat the Bengals. Now, you could argue they should have lost to the Packers. I mean, we always talk about this. You are what you are. But maybe they're sitting there going, we're just a few pieces away. We're playing tough. We have this great defense. We obviously don't have a quarterback yet. Are they playing? Phelps is basically saying, are they playing for the future more so than now?
Well, I'll start with I don't think Kevin Stefanski has to worry about getting fired in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
I think if they're 3-14 again, he's got to worry about getting fired at the end of the season. And I don't know where that number, right, where the safe number is. And maybe 3-14 wouldn't be enough to fire him because it is about the future, and the Haslam's knew this season was going to be tough regardless. But 3-14 followed by 3-14 is really difficult to stomach, especially if you can't score any points on offense and your coach is responsible for the offense. So I think that could be in play depending on how the season plays out. Now, the focus on the future is interesting, and I do think organizationally there is a focus on the future. You can see it by the makeup of the roster, how many rookies there are, how many rookies are playing, the fact that they have 2 rookie quarterbacks on the roster, right? So there is that. But you can't lose sight of the present when you're focused on the future. And that's what every Sunday is about, right? Is these games, and can you win it, and what's your record, and you should have won it. And now it's 2 games that they should have won, and I want to get more into this later. Now, the first one I don't think was Stefanski's fault. If you want to blame Stefanski for this one, we've had that discussion. So, it's a dual track you're on, and I don't think Stefanski's focusing on the future, even if the organization is to some degree. And I think that makes it tough. And I think it makes it tough to coach when the roster is so young, and it shows up. Some of that youth shows up in big moments. It shows up when you have a rookie quarterback, third downs, all those things.
So let's finish out. Let's go back to the defense now. So obviously that the offense didn't help themselves out, help the team out there with that drive. Defense, I heard what you had to say, and I think you blame the defense more than anything else. Is that your number one? Is that at the top of the list for you? Is the defense on that final drive?
Yep, that's my biggest takeaway, Chud. It was after the game. It's immediately after the game. It still is. I'd put that ahead of coaching. I'd put that ahead of offense. Now, we're not talking about the whole season. This one game, I put it on the defense. 3 minutes, you need one stop to win the game. 80 yards. I know a field goal could have tied it, but still. Carson Wentz is a quarterback. Minnesota has 4 backup offensive linemen in the game. And they go 10 plays, 80 yards. All 10 plays are positive. Carson Wentz is 9 for 9 for 71 yards. That can't happen. It shouldn't happen. If you're the elite defense you say you are, if you're the number 1 defense you proclaim to be, that it shouldn't happen. And I went back and I watched that drive multiple times. One of the biggest plays, 2 of the biggest plays, Denzel Ward, it's a jump ball to Justin Jefferson on the fade, and he catches it over Denzel Ward. And, it's good on good, and it's a tough play, but you'd love your Pro Bowler to make a play there and get a backup or break up if you're the Browns. And then Ward takes responsibility after the game for not rerouting Jordan Addison on that 12-yard touchdown, the winning touchdown, where it's so easy, it's so obvious that he lets him go, and Ronnie Hickman, the safety, has no chance to get over there in time. And if they're playing zone, that Ward has to make him go inside, and he just doesn't. So that's 2 big plays from Denzel Ward. Myles Garrett doesn't get pressure. Now, I went back and watched, and he's getting double and triple teamed, so it's really hard for him. But they don't win up front. And I saw them only blitz once. They brought a fifth guy, Carson Schlesinger, once on that drive. Obviously, he didn't get home. And then they only went four-man pressure the rest of the way, which Schwartz is probably going, hey, my four guys, they're my best players. They're going to win against these backups and let me drop 7 in coverage. Well, rushing 4 didn't work and dropping 7 didn't work. So maybe you could have blitzed and just switched something, changed the timing, made Carson Wentz uncomfortable. But that just shouldn't happen, Chud. And it was way too easy the way it happened as well.
It didn't seem like they got any pressure on him at all. It just seemed like he could do what he wanted there on that last drive, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of quick stuff. Dump here, dump there, but it's a 14-yarder over the middle of the tight end, a 21-yarder, and that was a big play, right? The jump off fade to Jefferson. But those happen, and then all of a sudden you can swing pass here, dump to the tight end here, and then it's the 12-yard touchdown. So, I thought Wentz did great. I thought the play calling was great. And just real quick, you brought up Jefferson. When I talked about how O'Connell looked better than Stefanski, we do have to remember that O'Connell's working with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, who are probably better than any, or at least looked that game. I know Jefferson's better than anybody, but Addison looked better that game, even though he was suspended for the first quarter or benched for the first quarter for missing a walkthrough. He looked better than anybody the Browns had at receiver, and that makes it easier to call plays.
Yeah. But he had his backup quarterback.
Right. Well, they're both playing.
Maybe that highlights the coaching even more. Finding a way to get it done. Here's another thing. If we want, I totally forgot about it to bring up during my rant about the coaching. I mean, this falls on the coaching too, Scott. The penalties. I mean, 10 penalties?
It was 10.
10 penalties, 78 yards, I think it was.
Yes.
And big ones, too, that took back touchdowns.
Well, you're not wrong. And I don't want to sound like a guy that just defends Kevin Stefanski. But when your left tackle, who's making his second NFL start, I want to say, KT Leviston, when he has, 2 false starts and 2 holds or whatever it was at least 3 penalties. And then the guy that Cam Robinson, the veteran you traded for, goes in and has back-to-back penalties on 2 snaps. Like, I don't know how much I blame coaching for that, right? Like, at some point, your players have to not false start, and there's not a whole lot of guys. It's like, well, bench him. Well, the guy you just benched him for had a false start. You're on your 3rd and 4th left tackles. The one guy just got here, and then a hold like that. I don't blame the hold on the coach. I just don't. It's a poor technique. It's, maybe a big picture you want to blame like the coaching staff and he's not whatever. But I don't blame Stefanski for the fact that the left tackle holds the defensive end or the linebacker on a long Judkins touchdown run. Like he's not in control of that.
Didn't you say though that the Vikings had a bunch of backup offensive linemen on that winning drive? They weren't holding anybody. They seemed to get it done.
Yeah, I mean that's fine, but I credit the players too, right? Like, I mean, at some point you do have to blame the player. I guess that's my point. Sometimes you have to blame the player,
and I usually do.
Right?
I usually do.
I guess my point, like 10 penalties looks terrible, and there's times when you go, oh my God, the lack of discipline, the lack of preparation. There are all these pre-snap penalties. To me, it felt like, oh my God, your left tackles are killing you with these penalties. Like that's how it felt to me this game. And, we could talk about, he took back the Judkins 56-yard touchdown. But if he doesn't hold, it's not a 56-yard touchdown, right? So, that doesn't mean his technique could have been better. And I'm not saying he should have held and he shouldn't have. And I'm not saying he's not to blame. But, like, it's not like if he just doesn't touch the guy, it's a touchdown, because it's not, because the guy probably makes a tackle. So, maybe I'm just nitpicking here, but this game, these penalties, I thought were more players than coaches.
Well, Scott, maybe I'm just trying to pad the resume. You know how people pad their resume to make it look better, or you get in an argument with your significant other and you just start throwing stupid stuff in there just to add to your argument. Maybe that's what I'm doing here with I'm padding my resume by throwing the penalties under, other stuff that I already, highlighted. I'm piling on. You
took debate in high school.
Yeah, right. So there you have it. So yeah, the defense, that was disappointing. All right, let's get into Dillon Gabriel. What'd you think? I mean, it's his first career start. I said on the air Monday morning, I don't know if he's the future guy, but I don't blame him. I thought he played solid. So it's kind of just like hey, he did enough to win. Maybe could have done more to win, but he isn't the reason they lost.
That's all completely accurate, Chud. Solid's a good word. We knew he was going to be composed. Like, that's who he is. He played 6 years in college. He was composed. I think he's always going to be composed. So that wasn't a surprise, but it's still impressive. A guy making his first NFL start. No, not turning the ball over is key. I mean, that's probably the biggest reason they made the change from Joe Flacco. That, and he's 40 years old and doesn't have a future, or much long-term future, is because Joe turned it over 8 times in 4 games. It wasn't all Joe's fault, but that happened. So I thought those were the positives. The touchdown to Njoku was a 9-yard dart. That was a good play. So, like Stefanski said, a lot of positives, certainly something to build on. You want to see more of Dillon Gabriel. Having said that, they still only score 17 points. They go 3 for 15 on third down. And if you take away the 44 yards on those 2 passes when they're trying to get in, Hail Mary range, he threw for 145. So it wasn't like he didn't blow anybody's doors off. The offense still scored the same number of points as it did with Joe Flacco, and with or without turnovers, right? And again, I think a lot of it goes back to the receivers. And if you're not getting any help, you're not getting any help. I don't care who's playing quarterback. So I thought he was better than fine. Is he a game changer? Not yet. He wasn't. Maybe he will be. And this is not a knock on it. It's just I think we have to have realistic expectations when it comes to Dillon Gabriel. The other thing is, I hear a lot of people talk about the element he brings with his legs. And I wrote about it before the game. And obviously he's better than Joe Flacco, right? He's 16 years younger than Joe Flacco. He moves better than Joe Flacco. But we have to be realistic, honest, whatever. Like, and I'm not saying anybody compared to Michael Vick, but like, he's not changing the game with his legs. They tried to run a couple zone reads. He got tackled for a loss. He scrambles for 1 sack, but doesn't quite get to the first down. Like, he's got a little bit of movement skills, and he's better than Flacco, but he is not, like, you can't win with Dillon Gabriel's going to be a part, like, Dillon Gabriel running is never going to be a big part of this offense. Can you bootleg him more than Flacco? Sure. You get him out on the edges and do some stuff? Yes. But him as a run threat is not, I don't think defenses are going to worry about that, and I don't think it's going to be any significant part of this offense.
Scott, I heard you say on the I heard you say it on the radio, and you may have written it too. I'm not sure, but you basically alluded to the fact that nothing changed as far as the offense, and they only scored 17 points. The only pushback I'll put to that is, yes, 100% agree. He didn't light up the scoreboard. They didn't score 30 points, right? But had Flacco played in the game, he may have thrown 2 terrible interceptions, and we wouldn't have had the lead late to give up. Like, we may have already had lost the game in the third quarter. That's one thing that I kind of look at it is he gave him a chance to win, whereas this Flacco we've been seeing this year, he may have thrown the game away before the end. I'm not saying he would have for sure. I'm just saying that's one way to look at it is the no turnovers were huge.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that completely. I agree that you can't turn the ball over, and he did a really good job with that. And, they probably have to find a good balance of trying to stretch the field and taking some more chances with not turning the ball over because they need to score more than they're scoring. But yeah, that was of all the positives, I would say that was the number one positive for Dillon Gabriel. Against a good Vikings defense with a really good defensive coordinator in Brian Flores.
Boy, we got our running back, don't we?
He looks good. He looks good, Chud. And it's you saw some breakaway speed, which I'm not sure he showed that much at Ohio State, but you saw it on that touchdown to get called back, even on that 32-yard run he had. He's already got, I think it's 3 or 4 20 or 30-yard runs, and he's only played 4 games. And then it's the physical. The one player, he turned his back and he's still gaining yards. He picks up a 4th and 1 that, he got a block from Aiden Huntington, but still had to beat a guy, and he had to, kind of brace himself off the ground to get to that first down. So, he's been really impressive, and I think you're going to see more and more of him. Now, it's a question of what's the right number of carries. I think at 23, it's hard to give a guy that much more than 23. It just is. I know he's a volume guy, Stefanski calls him, but, you're probably maxing out at 25, 26. So, but yeah, really impressive. And, that's where we talked about it all year. That's how this offense is going to have to live, is with a good running game with Quinshon Judkins, complement it with some third down conversions, and play great defense. Like, that's the chance for this team to win some games.
It's funny, you hear people complain, you got to give them the ball more. You didn't get the ball enough. Well, why was, Ford in and this and that? But, it's the same. How many times did we talk about this with Chubb, right? It's the same thing. He can't carry the ball every single play.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. We talk about, like, takes that I think are bad. I think that's a bad take. Why is Jerome Ford ever in the game? Like, Judkins cannot play every snap, number one. Number two, they do personnel packages. And Ford is the third down, 2-minute guy. So that means he's going to be out there in those situations. And they practice that as a unit. You don't substitute. Ford is a good blitz pickup guy, and you saw that again Sunday. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I know that Jerome Ford did not get off to a good start this year. I thought he played his best game. He had 5 carries for 18 yards, which isn't great, but he had a 10-yarder. He caught 2 passes for 20 yards. He made a couple plays. If you want to say Stefanski should not have run a draw to Ford at the end of the first half from the 9-yard line, that's fine. But they're trying to catch the defense off guard. It wasn't the fact that if Ford got the ball and not Judkins there, it wasn't blocked and he got tackled. Like, to me, that meant nothing in the game. The fact that Jerome Ford got 5 carries, like, that didn't change the game. And you can't have Judkins out there every play. Dylan Sampson is not ready to be the blitz pickup guy and the third down back. So I think that's a non-entity of all these things we're picking up.
Yeah. I'm ready to put this one behind me. Are you ready to move on, or do you have anything else?
And this will tie into our predictions for Pittsburgh, Chud, and you referenced it at the top, but I just want to emphasize it. They should have beat Cincinnati. They should have beat Minnesota. And they'd be 3-2 heading to Pittsburgh with a chance to be in first place in the AFC North. And that's my biggest takeaway from the first 5 games. And even if you get rid of the Cincinnati game, if they beat Minnesota, which they should have done, they're 2-3, going to 3-1 Pittsburgh. They're tied for second in the division because Baltimore is a mess and Cincinnati is a mess without Joe Burrow. And we could have, there would be relevant talk of AFC North and where they stack up. And it's hard to have that discussion at 1-4. But you could have had it at 2-3, and you certainly could have had it at 3-2, despite all the flaws, right? Despite only scoring 17 points a game, you still could have been there. Now, they would have scored 17. They would have had to score more than 16 to win the opener with the missed kicks. But you get my point. Without scoring more than 20, they should be 3-2. And the fact that they're not changes everything. It changes how you look at this team, how you look at Kevin Stefanski, the confidence inside the locker room, right? If these guys are 3-2, they would be buoyed and they'd be moving forward. And yet now it's 1-4, and you're like, oh my God, our defense let us down. We can't score any points. And I just don't think that can be overstated.
I'm going to back up the 2-3. I'm not quite sure we can say if they should be 3-2. At some point, first of all, they really had no business winning that
Packers game. Yeah, that's fair.
And at some point, you can't always say, well, they should have won this game and should have won that game. So, we can say at least they should have won one of the ones against Cincinnati or Minnesota, right?
Those are fair points, Judd. I think, especially if you get to the end of the season, you look back and kind of go, hey, your record is what your record is. Mm-hmm. I think right now it's easier to look at, well, man, if you make 2 kicks or make 1 field goal, you win 1 game. And if you get one stop, you win this other game. And you're right. We could, I'm sure in Green Bay they're saying they should beat the Browns. So maybe 2-3 is a more logical result. But I still feel like that's significantly different than 1-4.
Yeah,
it just feels that different.
Yeah. Well, but let me ask you this though: with Burrow out and the way the Ravens are getting thumped right now with Lamar out, and we can't count the Ravens out. They could come back and win a bunch when he's healthy again. But, and I know this is a big but because they never win in Pittsburgh. But if they were to pull off the upset this Sunday, I mean, are they kind of back in it? Like next week would we be talking about? Hey, I mean, they're 2-4, but the Steelers are 3-2. I mean, right? What are the Steelers now? 3-1 because they had a bye?
Yes.
I mean, I'm just saying, is it possible to still have hope if they win this game Sunday?
Yes, that's what the discussion will be if they beat Pittsburgh, is they are back in the AFC North race. The AFC North is a disaster, and how can they get to 9 or 10 wins? Even if they lose to Pittsburgh, I mean, then they're 1-5, right? But even if Pittsburgh's 4-1, I still think this division is won at 9 or 10 games, which is not what I said before the season. I thought Baltimore was going to win 12 or 13. So I'm stunned by how Baltimore's playing. Lamar's out. That kills them too. I don't know what's going to happen in Baltimore. My guess is they figure it out to some degree, but does that mean they get to 8? Does that mean they get to 9? Does Pittsburgh win 10? Like, I don't think more than 10 wins is winning this division, which means at 2-4, you got a shot, right? So, yeah, I think that certainly would be the discussion if they beat Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and God, I keep looking. I look at Vegas so much. One of the reasons I picked the Browns last week, I don't know if I said it, but it's kind of what that I was surprised the Browns were only a 3.5-point dog, right?
Yep.
I think Vegas and I think the Browns are getting a little more respect nationally maybe than we are locally. And I know that sounds weird, but they're only a 4.5-point dog this week in Pittsburgh, a place they never win. I'm shocked it's not more than 4.5. That to me is Vegas giving respect to the Browns, or they don't completely buy into the Steelers. I don't know what, but typically, right? Am I missing something here?
Oh, no, you're correct, Chud. I mean, I thought it was going to be 7.5. I was stunned that it was a 7.5.
4.5. That actually makes me think they have a chance to win on Sunday. That's why it's so frustrating, that final drive. If they just would have gotten some more pressure on him and it really is frustrating. I don't know. I can't believe I'm saying this, but again, and the only reason I'm saying this is because of what's going on in Baltimore and Cincinnati. That's the only reason. If the Ravens and Bengals were doing what we thought they were going to do before the season started, I'd be saying right now, 1-4, we are done.
I agree. And I completely agree with you. Cincinnati is a complete mess, and Baltimore is defensively, they'll be better when Lamar comes back, but they got to figure it out defensively. They're on a record, they've given up a record number of points, or on that pace to give up a record number of points. When we talk about Pittsburgh, Chud, this leads into our picks here. They beat the Jets barely. They lost to Seattle at home. They beat a New England team that's whatever, and then they beat Minnesota last week in Dublin, right? And then they're on the bye. They've been outgained in every game. They've only gained 300 yards once, and that was the Minnesota game. They gained 313 yards. So, 3-1 feels a little shaky. And you look at their defense is creating a ton of turnovers. They had five turnovers, and they beat New England 21-14. They won the turnover battle by 4. They won it 2-0 against Minnesota and only win by 3. Now, we know that Pittsburgh historically wins that way, but my point is Pittsburgh is a flawed team without, I would say, a signature win. So I think that also plays into the narrow point spread.
And Scott, the NFL is crazy. I just want you to work with me here, all right? We do. I've talked about this before on the pod here, and I know my brother-in-law listens, so he'll get a kick out of this right now. I just want to ask you your opinion on these games. Thursday Night Football, 49ers at the Rams. With all those injuries, the 49ers, who would have you picked to win, Niners or Rams?
The Rams.
Exactly. Okay. Browns, you ended up changing your pick and went Browns, right?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
All right. So I thought the Rams. So we're in these family picks. You take 6 games. There's 3 you have to take and 3 of your own choice, right? I took the Rams 0-1. I took the Browns 0-2. Eagles at home over the Broncos. And I know Denver's good, but who would have you picked, Eagles or Broncos?
I think I would have taken the Eagles straight up. I mean, I make all those picks, right? But straight up, I would have taken the Eagles. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So 0-3. And by the way, they were up and totally blew the game.
Yep.
Oh, speaking of blowing games, who would have you taken? The Cardinals at home or the Titans?
Well, I'm watching ESPN right now. I would have taken the Cardinals, and they lose. And Jonathan Gannon, former St. Ignatius or fellow St. Ignatius alum, went nutty on the sideline with the guy that fumbled reaching the ball over the goal line there.
Mercado. Awful.
Yeah.
How does that continue to happen in the NFL?
Right? That's a great question.
It blows my mind. All right. So I'm 0-4. I mean, I just unbelievable. And now the Browns game, I get it. So that was a stretch. But those other 3, I mean, come on. All right. Then
I was going to say, you got to get to this one.
Sunday Night Football, Bills at home. I mean, did you think the Patriots would beat the Bills?
Oh, my God. No, Chud. And all you're doing is listing all the people that lost their survivor pools. Like, those are the teams you're listing.
Yeah.
I knew a guy that I played golf with a guy that had the Vikings in a survivor pool. And I go, how could you do that? It's a 3.5-point spread. The Browns have a great chance to win. And he winds up getting lucky. And he texted me, he got lucky. I said, you got to take Buffalo over New England. Well, I would have lost.
Right.
And he had 3 entries. The other one was the Rams. So he lost the Rams entry. And the other team he was considering was Arizona. Yeah.
There you go.
It's a crazy league, Chud.
It's crazy. So I'm 0-5, and then you have to take the Monday night game. And I did hear some people predicting Jacksonville, but I took the Chiefs.
I would have taken the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yep. 0-6. I went 0-6 straight up.
That's hard to do, buddy.
It is. I don't think I know I've never done that. 0-6.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, you can pick 3 games and you have to take 3 games. The 3 games I picked, I stayed away from some other games that I was concerned about.
Yeah. And
all of those would have won. It's just.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just it's a crazy league. And like, here's an example, like the Colts. I stayed away from that one because I'm like, oh, that's the type of game where the Raiders, who have been terrible, will come in there and Indy's finally going to step back. But no, the Indy's for real. And it looks like New England's a pretty good team.
Well, how about New Orleans beating the Giants for their first win, right? The Giants get a win and then go to New Orleans and lose, right? Like, it's – I hate the cliche and I hate the fact that the coach says it every day, but it is a 1-week league. And, like a 1-0, so let's go 1-0, but it's a week-to-week league. It's all about how you play in that game, in that matchup, and it's so much about hanging around until the finish and then making a few plays at the end. And we saw that with New England. We saw that – you just see it throughout the league. We saw it with Minnesota. Hang around, make a play at the end. And we saw it with Denver. Like, that's – it makes it exciting. I think it makes it hard on fans and hard on coaches because there's not teams running away normally. But that's how you have to be. And it takes a mentality. It takes a mental toughness to play that way. And the teams that do it are the best teams, right? A lot of times it's that ability to just hang around, fight, overcome, and make a couple plays at the end.
Yeah, no doubt. What's the recipe? By the way, I'm looking on my phone here. It looks like that Steelers are 5.5 now.
Gone up. Okay.
So it's gone. It was 4.5, 5.5. So that's getting closer to what I thought it would be.
Right.
What's the recipe to beat Pittsburgh? Is it getting pressure on Rodgers and making him uncomfortable, and the defense comes through there, and then you just kind of milk the clock with Junkins and try to don't give the game away on offense? Like, how do you win this game?
Yeah, I think it's you don't turn the ball over, which is really hard to do against them. I mentioned they had 5 a couple weeks ago. You figure out a way to block T.J. Watt, who I think I saw a stat that he had gone 6 games without a sack. I'm going to look that up. But you figure out to not let him wreck a game, which he's done plenty of times. And then, you got to pressure Aaron Rodgers. And now he doesn't throw a lot of picks, but you got to pressure him. He doesn't move like he used to. Just make him get the ball out of his hands. They're not an explosive offense, or they haven't been an explosive offense. So I think if you protect the ball, then you have a chance to play that, right, 2017 game. And I think that's the hope you have to have if you're the Browns, is to play that type of a game. Yeah, I don't know. That stat about JJ was wrong. Maybe he had gone 6 in a row, but they had 2 against New England and 1 against Minnesota. So,
all right. So last week I picked the Browns. You took the Vikings, but then you switched it, and in the paper you took the Browns. So what's the official rule?
Yeah, no, I think we counted as a loss for me, Chud. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm willing to not pressure you into that, but
no, it's not fair if I hedge my own bets. No, give me a loss. Do it every week. Yeah.
All right, so then we're both 2 and 3. I had you at 3 and 2, but we're both 2 and 3, and the Browns are 1 and 4. Well, at least we're better than them.
There you go. I was back and forth all week. I flip-flopped last week during our pod, and then as the week went on, I kept going, the Vikings offensive line injuries, and I talked myself into it, and obviously, it's hard to say you've been wrong either way, because the Vikings wound up winning and the Browns should have won. So
yeah, well, you know what it is? We were wrong, but everything that we kind of if we would have picked the Browns and they lose 33-0, then you just look like a goofball. But I think everything that we kind of talked about that went into our thinking of how they could win. That's kind of how. I guess that's why I asked you, how do you go ahead and beat Pittsburgh? And I'll just go first. I'm not going to waste any time. They never win there. Could they win? Sure. Like I said earlier with the line, but I'm just not going to predict it. You know how I am. It's tough. It's tough for me to pick them to win, and then they do that against Minnesota. So I'm going to go Steelers 20-16.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chud. I think it's a big week for how this team can respond to a really a difficult loss, right? One they felt they should have won. Then you got to fly home from London, and you got to get your body back right, and you got to get on the practice field Wednesday, and you got to go get ready to go into Pittsburgh. So I think it's going to say a lot about this team, because if they're as mentally tough as they need to be, then they'll say, hey, we have to prove, especially defensively, have to prove that the end of that Minnesota game isn't who we are. Let's go shut down Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf in that group. But if it's, hey, we're worn out and this first 6 games has been brutal and we just had to come back from London and Pittsburgh's on a bye, or coming off a bye, then that's the wrong mentality, and you can go in there and get it handed to you by the Steelers. So I expect the Browns to respond. That doesn't mean it's going to be enough. And I would say they haven't won a regular season game there since 2003. And I don't know if I can predict a rookie quarterback to go in there to do it against, Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers. I know he's not the player he used to be. He's still Aaron Rodgers. They still have some players. They still have Mike Tomlin. I'm going to take the Steelers 24-20.
Yeah, so we both have 4-point wins for the Steelers. I'll tell you, this would change everything. If they win this game, no one's talking about firing Stefanski. Everything changes. They win this game. They're back in the division race. Boy, I mean, it adds definitely to some. It gives you a little bit of excitement, right? If they're able to pull this off somehow.
And then the schedule gets easier, Chud. Right? You get Miami come in, then it's I get the order off the top of my head, but it's New York by New England or New England by New York. All of a sudden you look and go, hey, can you get on a run here? So it's, we talk about the roller coaster and the ups and downs. If they beat Pittsburgh, the conversation shifts and it becomes a little bigger picture, certainly.
Yeah, it's Dolphins at New England, at Jets, Ravens, at Raiders.
I mean, those are some winnable games there, right? Yeah, I mean, they look like winnable games. So,
yeah, no doubt. And you bring up that streak. It takes you back to memories when we were kids, when they couldn't win at Three Rivers.
Yeah,
Remember
right.
they finally did with Bernie.
I certainly remember that. Yeah, the old jinx. Yeah.
Yeah, the Three Rivers jinx.
Yep.
All right, well, that's all I got, unless you got anything else.
No, we're good, but that was a good one. We talked about a bunch of stuff there, pal.
Boy, we really did. That was beefy.
It sure was. All right. Well, I appreciate it always, Chud. I enjoyed the conversation as always. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been another episode of the Zone Coverage Podcast, and you can read all my work at brownzone.com. Thanks.